Dr. Elena Rice pressed her palm against the laboratory window, watching the crystalline vessel hovering above Madrid Pulse with impossible colors. Unlike everyone else in the research complex, she felt no compulsion to worship the beings that called themselves the Luminary. While her colleagues shuffled through halls with glazed expressions, Elena's mind remained sharp, analytical, and terrified. Another immunity case confirmed in Buenos Aires, her assistant Marcus whispered, sliding a tablet across the desk. That makes 17 worldwide. Elena nodded, careful to maintain a vacant expression for the surveillance systems. The Luminary missed nothing with their light-based monitoring network, except, somehow, the thoughts of a handful of humans seemingly immune to their influence. The neural patterns match our previous subjects, she murmured, reviewing the data. Same unusual theta wave configuration. Same resistance to the harmonic adjustments. The Luminary had arrived promising enlightenment and protection. Within hours, 80% of humanity succumbed to their gentle guidance, a psychic manipulation embedded within the prismatic light displays. World leaders announced cooperation with tears of joy streaming down their faces, while military commanders ordered stand-downs with beatific smiles. Elena's lab, originally dedicated to cross-species communication theory, had become something else entirely. Perhaps humanity's last hope for understanding what made certain humans resistant. Her secure terminal chimed, a sound that shouldn't be possible given the communications blackout. The screen flickered, displaying text in a language she'd never seen yet somehow understood. Your neural structure intrigues us. Not all luminaries share the Conclave's vision. Meet me. Observatory. Midnight. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs. A trap? Possibly. But the message had bypassed security protocols thought impenetrable. Marcus, I need the latest brain scans from the other immunity cases, she said loudly for the benefit of listening devices, while typing a quick response. Who are you? The reply came instantly. One who sees differently. The light blinds my kind as much as yours. Later that night, Elena slipped through darkened corridors using paths she carefully mapped between surveillance nodes. The observatory dome stood empty, its massive telescope now repurposed to project luminary enlightenment patterns into the atmosphere. Your species fascinates us, came a melodic voice from the shadows. Elena froze as a figure emerged, humanoid but wrong in subtle ways. Taller, more angular, with skin that seemed to absorb rather than reflect the ambient light. Most startling were its eyes, multifaceted like an insect's, yet expressing something unmistakably like doubt. Your luminary, Elena whispered. I am Talon, the being replied. And yes, though some would question my purity for being here. The alien moved closer. The Conclave believes humanity requires guidance. Others of us suspect you represent something unique in the galaxy, something that should not be adjusted. Why contact me? Because you perceive what others cannot. Talon extended a hand containing what looked like a small crystal, and because in 3 days, the harmonization will become permanent for all humans. Unless we find another way. Captain Marcus Chen winced as feedback screeched through his makeshift headphones. 6 months of hiding beneath Singapore's abandoned subway tunnels had taught him patience, but electronics weren't his specialty. The Resistance needed Dr. Takahashi for that, but he was currently infiltrating a luminary processing center across the city. Try adjusting the tertiary oscillator, whispered Lin, a former sound engineer who'd escaped the initial thought adjustments by pure luck. She'd been in an anechoic chamber during first contact. Marcus turned the dial carefully, and suddenly Bach's cello suite No. 1 flowed through the speakers, its familiar melody carrying something new. Subtle variations in tone that human ears registered as normal but contained encoded resistance instructions buried within the harmonic structure. Broadcast ready, Lin confirmed, checking the signal strength. We'll reach every underground shelter in Southeast Asia with this one. Their underground bunker, once a government contingency facility, now housed 37 resistance members and the most powerful illegal transmitter in Asia. The walls were lined with strange geometric patterns, protection shields designed from Alina's research, disrupting the luminary's ability to detect human brainwave patterns. "Begin transmission," Marcus ordered, thinking of his daughter Mai. Just 19 when the luminary came, she'd been selected last week for ascension. The process where humans with specific neural configurations were taken aboard the crystalline vessels, never to return. He had 3 days to find her before the transport left Earth. As the music began broadcasting, Marcus unfolded a hand-drawn map where X marks indicated luminary processing centers. Intelligence suggested Mai was being held at the central facility, the former Singapore Opera House, now transformed into a glittering dome of shifting light patterns. "Captain, incoming transmission from Dr. Reyes," called Jaya, their communications specialist. "Priority Alpha." Marcus hurried to the secure terminal where Alina's face appeared, haggard from sleepless nights. "We've confirmed it," she said without preamble. The luminary evolved in complete darkness, a subterranean species from a world with no surface light. Their mastery of light technology was defensive initially, to protect against what they perceived as radiation damage. "How does that help us?" Marcus asked. "Because they've been lying about their invulnerability. Their sensitivity to certain light frequencies is so extreme it can disrupt their neural pathways." Talon provided spectrographic data on their biological responses. Marcus leaned forward. "You're saying we can hurt them with light?" "Not just any light, specifically concentrated pulses at 720 nanometers, with a precise modulation pattern. It overwhelms their sensory processing." Alina's expression hardened. "And the processing centers where they're holding humans for ascension. They're keeping the light levels deliberately low there." Hope flared in Marcus's chest for the first time in months. "How quickly can you get me a working prototype?" "Takahashi is already modifying flashlights." "But Chen," her voice dropped, "we intercepted the ascension manifests. They're accelerating the program. May's transport leaves tomorrow night, not in 3 days." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Then we move now. Transmit the blueprints for the light weapons and prep the strike teams. I'm bringing my daughter home." The underground jazz club in what used to be Barcelona's Gothic quarter pulsed with improvised rhythms and sweaty bodies pressed together in defiance of the occupation. Dr. Alina Reyes moved through the crowd, her neural dampener disguised as a vintage hair clip, its soft hum protecting her thoughts from luminary scans. On stage, the quartet played with deliberate spontaneity, the saxophonist hitting chaotic patterns that seemed random but contained embedded resistance data. Alina had discovered that jazz improvisation generated neural activity that appeared as meaningless static to luminary surveillance. The more unpredictable the music, the better the cover. "The thought harmonizers are nearly complete," whispered Santiago, her liaison to the European resistance cells. He passed her a drink, slipping a microdrive beneath the napkin. 3 orbital platforms positioned to blanket the entire northern hemisphere. "Testing begins in 48 hours. Alina nodded, taking a sip while pocketing the drive. Inside would be schematics smuggled by luminary defectors. Those who, like Talon, had begun experiencing something unprecedented among their kind. Emotional awakening triggered by prolonged exposure to human creativity. "And Chen's daughter?" she asked. "Extraction successful. They're moving through underground routes to the Monaco safe house." Santiago's eyes drifted to the stage. "We've lost contact with 4 cells in Eastern Europe. Complete neural restructuring, according to our sources. The harmonizers might be operational sooner than we thought." The saxophone player hit a particularly frenzied solo, the musical chaos creating a perfect bubble of neural interference. Alina leaned closer. "We need to move up the meeting with Talon. Tell your people the exchange happens tonight, not tomorrow." As Santiago disappeared into the crowd, Alina felt her secure communicator vibrate. A message from Dr. Takahashi. Asterisk light weapon prototypes successful in limited test. 94% disruption of luminary sensory capabilities for 7.3 seconds. Working to extend duration asterisk. 7 seconds wasn't much, but it might be enough for what she planned. 3 hours later, Elena stood in the abandoned Sagrada Familia, its soaring architecture now embedded with luminary monitoring crystals that pulsed softly in the darkness. The agreed meeting point was dangerously exposed, but Talon had insisted. The cathedral's unique acoustics created natural dead zones in luminary surveillance. You came alone. Unwise, Talon materialized from the shadows, his form seeming to absorb the ambient darkness. The Conclave suspects my heresy. Then we have little time, Elena said, producing a small device from her pocket. We've modified the light weapons based on your specifications. Talon's multifaceted eyes reflected nothing. Show me. She activated the device, projecting a complex pattern of light frequencies that shifted in precise mathematical sequences. Talon studied it, then extended a hand over the projection, his fingers moving through the light patterns, making subtle adjustments. The resonance is imperfect, he said, but you're closer than I expected. My kind would find this painful. Painful enough to stop the harmonizers. Perhaps. Talon's voice lowered. But I must show you something first. The true purpose of the Ascension program. He produced a crystal similar to the one he'd given her at their first meeting. These humans aren't being harvested, Elena. They're being transformed. The Luminary aren't preparing to change humanity. They're desperately trying to change themselves. Dr. Akira Takahashi stood motionless inside the damaged luminary vessel, his breath fogging in the unnaturally cold air. The ship's interior defied conventional physics. Corridors shifted and realigned themselves as if breathing. Walls rippled with geometric patterns that seemed to process information, and light itself behaved differently here, pooling like liquid in certain areas while avoiding others entirely. The architecture responds to thought patterns, he murmured into his recorder as Captain Chen, and 3 resistance fighters secured the perimeter. It's not just technology, it's a form of crystallized consciousness. The vessel had crashed during the solar storm, its systems temporarily disabled by the electromagnetic pulse. Chen's team had less than 30 minutes before luminary recovery units arrived. Focus, Doctor, Chen urged, checking his modified watch. 26 minutes remaining. Takahashi nodded, moving deeper into the ship. His synesthesia, a neurological condition that caused him to perceive numbers as colors and sounds as shapes, had always been considered a curiosity in scientific circles. Now it was proving invaluable. Where others saw only bewildering alien technology, he recognized patterns, mathematical relationships translated through his unique perception. This way, he said with sudden certainty, turning toward what appeared to be a solid wall. As he approached, the surface became translucent, then disappeared entirely, revealing the ship's core, a chamber filled with dancing particles of light organized in complex, ever-changing constellations. "It's beautiful," whispered one of the fighters, a former astronomer. "It's stellar consciousness," Takahashi replied, his fingers moving rapidly across his specialized tablet, recording the patterns. They're not just manipulating light. They're harvesting awareness from stars themselves. He connected his equipment to a crystalline interface, downloading data at unprecedented speeds. The information flooding his screen confirmed what he'd theorized. Luminary technology operated on principles similar to human consciousness, but at a quantum level. Their mastery of light wasn't just about energy manipulation. It was about information processing, using photons as carriers for thought itself. That's why they're interested in humans, he said, the realization striking him like lightning. Our consciousness has a similar structure to stellar energy patterns. We're the only species they've encountered that resembles the stars they've been communing with. Chen approached cautiously. What does that mean for us? It means, Takahashi said, his voice hushed with wonder, that human dreams operate on similar principles to their technology. The patterns our brains generate during REM sleep. They're almost identical to these stellar consciousness signatures. A sudden alarm pulsed through the ship, not a sound, but a feeling of urgency that penetrated their minds. They're coming, Chen warned. We need to move. One more minute, Takahashi pleaded, finalizing the download. His tablet chimed completion just as the ship began to repair itself, walls flowing like mercury to seal breaches. As they rushed toward the extraction point, Takahashi's mind raced with implications. If human dreams paralleled luminary technology, then recorded dream patterns could potentially interface with or disrupt their systems. They could build a defense using the most human thing of all, our unconscious imagination. I need sleep recordings, he told Chen as they escaped into the night, from as many resistance members as possible. And I'll need to build a completely new kind of device, one that translates human dream states into light. Behind them, the luminary vessel pulsed with renewed energy, its crystalline structure reaching toward the stars like a silent prayer. The sky above Tokyo glittered with celebration lights, massive holographic displays projecting luminary symbols that the occupiers had decreed represented unity and ascension. Captain Marcus Chen watched from his concealed position atop a half-demolished skyscraper, his modified binoculars revealing what ordinary humans couldn't see, the subtle patterns of control embedded within the beautiful light show. All teams in position, his communication specialist whispered through the secure channel, waiting for your signal. Around the world, resistance cells had spent months preparing for this moment. Operation Sunrise, humanity's first coordinated global offensive against the luminary. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Using Dr. Takahashi's dream tech and the frequency discoveries, they would create massive light and sound installations that appeared to honor the luminary, while actually disrupting their sensory abilities. Tokyo unit standing by, Chen confirmed, watching the gathering below. Thousands of humans with adjusted consciousness gathered in the central plaza, their faces upturned in adoration as light patterns washed over them. Among them moved disguised resistance members, carrying what looked like ceremonial lanterns, each containing Takahashi's disruptive technology. Beijing confirms ready. Moscow standing by. New York in position. Cairo ready. The confirmations continued, 17 major cities reporting operational status. Chen checked his watch, synchronized to the millisecond with teams worldwide. In precisely 4 minutes, they would activate simultaneously, creating a 3-minute window when luminary perception would be severely compromised. Remember, he reminded his team, 3 minutes is all we have. Primary targets only. No heroics. His thoughts turned briefly to his daughter May, now safe in the underwater resistance base beneath the Mediterranean. After her rescue, she had provided invaluable intelligence about luminary processing centers, the very targets they would strike tonight. 60 seconds, his lieutenant announced. Chen took a deep breath, watching the luminary guards floating above the crowd, their crystalline forms refracting the celebration lights. They suspected nothing. Activate on my mark, he said, finger hovering over the trigger device. 3, 2, 1. Execute. Across Tokyo, the ceremonial lanterns flared simultaneously, emitting precisely calibrated light frequencies. Similar activations occurred worldwide, creating a synchronized disruption that momentarily blinded luminary sensory systems. The effect was immediate. The floating guards twisted in confusion, their crystalline bodies pulsing with erratic patterns. The control displays faltered, breaking the hypnotic hold on the gathered humans, who blinked in momentary confusion. All units move now, Chen ordered, leading his strike team toward the primary target, the district control node housed in the former imperial palace. The resistance had practiced this assault countless times. Teams moved with precision through the disoriented crowds, using the 3-minute window to maximum effect. Chen's unit reached the control node with 90 seconds remaining, deploying Takahashi's devices against the crystalline structure. The node's defenses collapsed as designed, allowing them access to the central chamber where a single luminary of the previously unseen ultraviolet caste maintained operations. The alien's form was more ethereal than the others, almost transparent, with complex geometries shifting beneath its surface. Uploading the virus, Chen's tech specialist announced, connecting to the node's interface. The luminary recovered faster than anticipated. A pulse of energy knocked half the team unconscious immediately. Chen felt his mind being probed, invaded by alien consciousness. "Complete the upload," he shouted as guards materialized in the chamber. The specialist slammed the final command just as Chen was enveloped in blinding light. His last conscious thought was confirmation of success. The node's collapse would trigger similar failures across the region, before his mind was overwhelmed by the luminary counterattack. Around the world, the operation succeeded with devastating efficiency and devastating cost. Half the resistance leadership, including Captain Chen, disappeared in the aftermath, taken to places unknown. Dr. Elena Reyes stared at the holographic projection of resistance cells worldwide, watching as too many points of light blinked from green to red. Operation Sunrise had succeeded in disrupting the luminary network, but at devastating cost. With Chen captured and communications compromised, the remaining resistance leadership was fracturing. "We can't wait any longer," she told the emergency council gathered in the underwater base beneath the Mediterranean. "Without unified leadership, we'll lose momentum completely." Former military commanders argued for caution, while civilian leaders demanded immediate rescue operations for the captured. The debate had raged for hours without resolution. "Enough," Elena finally said, silencing the room. "I've made my decision. We're accelerating collaboration with Talon's faction." The announcement sent shockwaves through the council. Working with defector luminary was one thing. Strategic alliance was another entirely. "They're still the enemy," General Hammond protested. "Defectors or not, they're our only hope of rescuing Chen and the others," Elena countered. "And Talon has provided something we never expected." She nodded to Dr. Takahashi, who activated a small crystalline device on the table. The device projected a swirling pattern of light that expanded to fill the center of the room. Unlike luminary control patterns, this light felt different, inviting rather than compelling. "This is a breakthrough in communication technology," Takahashi explained. "It allows direct consciousness sharing between humans and luminary, not control, genuine exchange." Elena stepped into the light pattern, her expression changing as the connection formed. "This is how we understand each other. This is how we change everything." Over the following weeks, Elena's controversial decision yielded unexpected results. Through the new communication system, humans experienced luminary perception, the ability to see wavelengths beyond normal human vision, to perceive time as malleable rather than fixed. The luminary, in turn, experienced human emotions, creativity, and intuitive thinking for the first time. More defectors emerged from the lower luminary castes, fascinated by human art, music, and emotional connections they'd never known. The communication technology evolved rapidly, allowing humans to manipulate light in ways previously impossible, creating hybrid technologies that blended science with artistic expression. In her private quarters, Elena reviewed reports from resistance cells worldwide. The number of luminary defectors had reached 300, a tiny fraction of their total population, but growing daily. Each defector brought valuable intelligence and technical expertise. Her secure console chimed with an encrypted transmission from Talon. His image appeared, more human-like than before, an adaptation he'd chosen to make communication easier. "The ultraviolet caste has discovered our network," he said without preamble. "They've scheduled executions of 12 defectors to be broadcast globally tomorrow." Elena's blood ran cold. "Can we stop it?" "Too late. The execution vessels are already in orbit." Talon's multifaceted eyes showed something new: grief. "They believe this demonstration will deter further defections. Or it could backfire," Elena said, mind racing. "If humans witness luminary being executed for choosing to understand us." She opened a channel to Takahashi. "We need to ensure every human on Earth sees this broadcast unfiltered. No luminary interference with perception." "Why?" Talon asked. "Because," Elena replied, "Humanity's greatest strength has always been empathy. When we witness suffering, even alien suffering, we respond. The ultraviolet caste doesn't understand this because they've never experienced emotion." The next day, resistance technology ensured that billions of humans witnessed the execution of luminary defectors without perceptual manipulation. What the ultraviolet caste couldn't predict was humanity's response: genuine mourning for beings they'd only known as oppressors. This unexpected display of empathy across species lines triggered something unprecedented, a wave of consciousness awakening among the lower luminary castes that rapidly became outright rebellion. The Antarctic Research Station, once devoted to studying climate change, now served as the staging area for humanity's most audacious mission. Dr. Elena Reyes watched as mixed teams of humans and rebel luminary prepared for the assault on the dimensional nexus hidden 2 miles beneath the ice. The quantum resonance device is calibrated, Dr. Takahashi reported, making final adjustments to the apparatus that would temporarily convert human consciousness into light frequencies, their only hope of freeing Captain Chen and the other prisoners. Elena nodded, her breath forming clouds in the frigid air. "And the strike teams? In position worldwide," Takahashi confirmed. "When we hit the nexus, they'll target secondary nodes simultaneously. The ultraviolet caste won't be able to respond to all fronts at once." The civil war between luminary factions had transformed Earth into a battlefield of light. Across the planet, humans fought alongside rebel luminari, learning to manipulate light-based weapons through intuitive movements that resembled choreographed dance more than traditional combat. What had begun as resistance had evolved into revolution, not just for humanity, but for the luminary themselves. Talon approached, his crystalline form adapted for the extreme cold. "The Loyalists have detected unusual energy patterns in this region. We have perhaps 3 hours before they pinpoint our location. Then we move now," Elena decided. The descent team consisted of 20 humans, including Elena and Takahashi, and 12 rebel luminary led by Talon. They traveled through tunnels melted in the ice by luminary technology, moving toward the source of mysterious energy readings that had been detected decades before humans understood their significance. Captain Chen had mapped the location during his captivity, his consciousness altered by luminary experimentation to perceive dimensional frequencies beyond normal human range. The information had been smuggled out by a luminary defector before communication was cut off completely. "We're approaching the threshold," Talon announced as they reached a chamber where the ice transitioned to something else, a material that seemed both solid and fluid simultaneously, with colors that existed outside the human visual spectrum. "This is it," Takahashi whispered, his instruments registering impossible readings. "The dimensional boundary." Elena stepped forward, activating the consciousness transference device Takahashi had created. The sensation was disorienting, her perception expanding beyond physical limitations, experiencing reality as pure information pattern. Through this altered state, she could see what remained invisible to normal human senses. The nexus itself, a vast multidimensional structure where countless strands of light connected to distant star systems. This was the true heart of luminary power, not their ships or weapons, but this cosmic communications network that extended across the galaxy. And within it, she perceived Captain Chen and the other captured humans, their consciousness converted to light patterns and integrated into the network. They weren't prisoners in the conventional sense, they had become components of the system itself. But most shocking was what she discovered at the Nexus core. The original luminary had ascended beyond physical form eons ago, leaving these lesser versions as caretakers who eventually forgot their own history. The current luminary were not conquerors but orphans, seeking what humans naturally possessed, the capacity for growth and reinvention. "They don't want to destroy us," she communicated to the team through the consciousness network. "They're trying to become us." The ultraviolet caste materialized around them, their forms more energy than matter. There would be no escape. Elena stood at the dimensional crossroads facing an impossible choice: destruction or transformation. In that moment of ultimate crisis, she made her decision not to annihilate their enemy, but to initiate a resonance that would forever change both species. 1 year after the merging at the Antarctic Nexus, the New Geneva Concord convened its first official assembly. Representatives from both transformed species gathered in a structure unlike any before it. A building composed of living light that responded to the collective consciousness of its occupants, its architecture shifting subtly to accommodate thought patterns and emotional resonances. Dr. Elena Reyes, her perception forever altered by the merging, watched delegates arrive from across Earth and beyond. Some appeared fully human, others retained luminary crystalline aspects, while many existed somewhere in between, each transformation unique to the individual's choice and nature. Still getting used to the new perceptions? Captain Chen asked, joining her on the observation platform. His rescue from the network had been one of the first successes after the merging. Though physically unchanged, his consciousness now operated on multiple levels simultaneously, a gift or burden depending on the moment. Some days are easier than others, Elena admitted. Seeing emotional states as color fields takes adjustment. Below them, Dr. Takahashi guided a delegation from the Centauri system, the first of many civilizations previously dominated by the luminary, who now sought understanding of the evolutionary leap. His hybrid neural structure allowed him to translate concepts between radically different forms of consciousness, making him the natural diplomat for these encounters. The living city prototype is ready for unveiling, Chen noted, checking his multispectrum communicator. They're waiting for you to begin the ceremony. Elena nodded, taking a moment to prepare herself. The decision she'd made at the dimensional nexus, to merge aspects of human creativity with luminary perception rather than destroy their enemy, had been instinctive rather than calculated. The resulting transformation had cascaded across both species like wildfire, forever changing Earth and the galaxy beyond. The unveiling ceremony took place in what had once been Central Park, now transformed into a nexus of consciousness-responsive technology. Thousands gathered both physically and through dimensional projection as Elena and Talon approached the central platform. Talon had changed perhaps most dramatically of all the luminary, choosing to maintain a form balanced between his original nature and human characteristics. As the former luminary scientist who had first reached out to humanity, he now served as bridge between what had once been separate species. Today we celebrate not victory through destruction, Elena addressed the assembly. Her voice carried through conventional sound and consciousness resonance simultaneously, but triumph through transformation. What stands before you is not a monument to power, but a testament to possibility. At her signal, the protective field surrounding the prototype dissolved, revealing a structure that defied conventional description. The living city, designed to house 5,000 residents initially, consisted of architecture that responded directly to the collective emotions and needs of its inhabitants. Buildings flowed like water when needed, hardened like crystal for protection, and transmitted information through light itself rather than artificial networks. This represents merely the beginning, Talon continued. Our combined understanding of consciousness as both energy and matter opens pathways neither of our civilizations could have discovered alone. As the crowd marveled at the demonstration, a small girl, perhaps 7 years old, approached the platform. Her appearance marked her as one of the first natural-born hybrids, with subtle crystalline patterns beneath her skin and eyes that perceived far beyond the human spectrum. With innocent curiosity, she extended her hands, creating a miniature galaxy of light between her palms, stars and systems dancing in perfect harmony, responding to her thoughts and emotions with mathematical precision and artistic beauty. Elena knelt beside the child, watching the universe taking shape between small fingers. "What do you call your creation?" she asked. The girl looked up, her eyes reflecting possibilities neither humans nor luminary had imagined alone. "The future," she replied simply, as ships from distant civilizations continued to arrive in orbit, drawn to a world where ancient enemies had become something entirely new together.